Yesterday we started to learn about vertical subtraction. Today we're going to be continuing to learn about vertical subtraction, but we're going to take it one step further, learning how to rename across a zero. This is when you'll find a zero in the number you are subtracting from, and this is when it can get a little bit trickier. So first we have an equation here, 301 subtract 164, and you can see that I've followed the steps out for the vertical subtraction by lining my place value columns up really carefully, making sure my ones numbers are on top of each other, my tens and my hundreds, and so forth if you had 4 or 5 digit numbers. Making sure that I'm writing one digit in every square so it's really neat and clearly set out. Remember, we always begin with our ones column, starting from the right hand side and moving across to the left. So if we have a look at our equation, 1 subtract 4, can we do that? No, we can't, because our top number is smaller than our bottom number. So what we need to do, and that's what we learned yesterday, that we must go next door to borrow. Now, if we go next door to our tens column, you'll see that there's nothing in our tens column. So there is nothing there for us to borrow and bring over to our ones. So this is where it gets a little bit trickier and there is an extra step. So we know we need to borrow for our ones column, but if there's nothing in our tens, what we then need to do is go next door again, and we need to borrow from our hundreds. And we're going to have to rename from here. So what we're going to do, there are 3 hundreds. We're going to cross that out and change it to a 2. And we're going to bring one of our hundreds across in our tens column. Now remembering when we have a flat, think about how many tens make up one of our hundreds. So thinking about how many rods are in 100, there are 10. 10 times 10 is 100. So we're going to bring 10 across. So we're going to cross this 0, 10 tens. Because like I just said, 10 times 10 equals 100. And we've taken one of our hundreds from our hundreds column and we've borrowed it for our tens column. Now we've got something in our tens column for our ones. So what we're then going to do is we're going to cross out our 10, we're going to change it to 9, and we're going to bring across 110 to our ones column. And 110 is the same as saying 10 ones. So our 1 is now going to change to 11 because 10 ones plus 1 1 is 11. Now we can subtract as usual, moving through each place value column. So 11 subtract 4 is 7. Then we move to our tens column, remembering all the renaming we've done. This is why it's so important to show all your working out. 9 subtract 6 is 3. Then our hundreds, 2 subtract 1 is 1. So our answer of 300 subtract 164 is 137. Let's do a few more together because it is really tricky. 400, I'll do that a little bit lower, sorry. 400 subtract 277. And it's really important in your workbooks to not squish all your equations up because you need working out space above your top number. So let's have a look. We begin with our ones column. 0 take away 7. Can we do that? No, we can't. We can't take 7 away from nothing. So what we need to do, remembering our little saying as well, if there is more on top, we can keep going. There's no need to stop. But if there is more on the floor, then we must go next door to get some more. So we're looking at our tens column, but there's nothing in our tens column. So what we then need to do is move to our hundreds. So we're going to rename our hundreds column. So we've got 4 hundreds here. We're going to cross it out and change it to 300s because we're then going to borrow 100 and bring it over to our tens column. Remembering 100 is made up of 10 tens. So we're going to write 10 here. Now we have something in our tens column to borrow for our ones column. So our 10 changes again to a 9, and then we carry that 10 over to our ones column. And because there's no ones here, it's just our 10. So then we subtract in our place value columns. 10 subtract 7 is 3. 9 subtract 7 is 2. 3 subtract 2 is 1. Now, as you might be able to see, some of you might be able to skip this section where you show you're working out of a 10, and you might be able to see that by borrowing a 10 to our ones column, we just rename the 40 to 39. So it will be 309 tenths. But I would suggest that you do all this working out to begin with, just to make sure you're following all the correct steps. Let's do one more together before you give some a go. 802 subtract 476. We begin with our ones column. 2 subtract 6. We can't do that because our number we're taking away is larger than the number we're starting with. And this is why it's really important to make sure you're always reading your subtraction problems top down. So we need to go to our tens column to borrow from, but there's nothing in our tens column. So when that happens, remember, we go next door again to our hundreds column. There are 8 hundreds here, so we're going to borrow one of the hundreds. So we're going to rename 800s to 700s, and we're going to take one of our hundreds over to our tens column. Remembering 100 is made up of 10 tens because we know 10 times 10 equals 100. So we're going to cross this 0 out and represent and rename it with our 10 tenths. Then we have a value in our tens column that we can use to borrow for our ones. So what we're going to do is cross our tens out, and we're going to change it to 9 tens, and we're going to bring 1 10 across to our ones. Now 1 10 is 10 ones. So what we do is 10 ones plus 2 ones is 12 ones. So we're going to rename our ones column to 12. So then we subtract as usual, working through our columns. 12 subtract 6 is 6. 9 subtract 7 is 2. 7 subtract 4 is 3. So 802 subtract 476 equals 326. Make sure, guys, that you are showing all your working out so you do not forget what you have columns you have borrowed from and what you have renamed. That's the key to getting the correct answer. Good luck with your problems.